All right, thank you. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rick Tubbs, and I am running to be your congressman here in District 7. And thank you, Anita and the Vallejo Chamber, for having us out. Thank you, George Miller, for coming today and giving us a chance to talk about the many things that are important to you and to all Americans today about where our country is going and the way forward. Many of you have not known me. Some on this side obviously have met me. Thank you very much. And have learned what I bring to the table. I want to tell the rest of us in here today a little bit about who I am and why I think I would be a good congressman for you and what my qualifications are and some of my ideas of what I'll do for you representing you up in Washington. First of all, I grew up in a one-stop sign town in Wisconsin. We grew up on welfare in a 4-room apartment above a bar. That was my humble beginnings. Never knew that it was anything different than a happy childhood. But that's where I started. Went to Fresno State University and earned a degree in mathematics. And also got my commission in the United States Air Force. And the funny story behind that is I was commissioned on Friday, graduated on Saturday, and married to my lovely wife sitting right here on Sunday. And that was over 21 years ago. From there, I spent the last 21 years in the Air Force as well, doing a lot of things, learning a lot of things. I was a T-38 instructor at Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas, and after that we came back to Travis Air Force Base to fly C-5s and C-17s during the war, as well as Afghanistan and Iraq, and I went into the reserves. Also was hired by a major airline. When I was hired by that airline, I was a union member, and still am for that matter. And I'm going to tell you another thing. I'm a proud union member. I understand collective bargaining. I've been through, this is my 3rd contract now with this company. Some good, some bad, hopefully good again. Yes, I'm a Republican, you bet. But I have some experience in my life, growing up on welfare, being a union member, that gives me an understanding of some of what's traditionally Democratic ideas. I don't want to privatize Social Security. As a Republican, I'm here to tell you that. I have a 97-year-old grandma that I love and adore, and she's a wonderful woman on so many levels. But to try to let my grandma manage her account successfully, I'd be doing it for her. And no. So that's one thing I'll give you. Collective bargaining, another thing. Unions have a role in this economy. They protect the middle class. They do, in the company I am, we have notoriously bad management labor relations. And that's really where I learned the need for a union, was working for my company. So I'm offering you those things to give you the idea that I'm not coming from the stereotypical, maybe sometimes even mischaracterized idea of a Republican candidate. I'm coming at this as a guy who's had a lot of experience. Military, 21 years. Combat veteran, know what it's like to face those things you face in war. I've worked as a budget officer for a Joint Command Headquarters. I know how federal budgets work. And that is why I'm running, because of our federal budget. And this is my daughter, Holly. If you would come up here, please. I want to show you a graph put together, and you don't need to read the words. Let me move it over a little bit. It's okay. This graph's put together by the CBO, Congressional Budget Office. On the gray side, you see the deficits that happened during the 2000s, even with a war. As you hit 2008, they start to go up, and then you see 2009, 2010 are the longest red lines down there. Then it just continues with huge red lines. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am here to tell you, I'm not running against George Miller because he's a bad guy. Not at all. I honor and respect your service for the 35 years you've given us in the House of Representatives as our representative. Thank you. But why I'm running and why I think I'm the right guy to represent this district in the future is because I see that red there and I say that's unsustainable, unacceptable, and we need to do something about it now. There is no plan coming from our government to fix that. If we don't fix this debt now, our children, my daughter right there that brought up the chart, and yours, and our grandchildren will not be able to do something about it. And it will take will, it will take experience, and it will take a lot of work and energy to get it done. And that's what I'm offering as your representative, is to get rid of that red and make sure that this future is bright for those that follow us. Thank you.
start with the questions. These questions were not given to either one of the candidates ahead of time. These were questions that were compiled by the Chamber of Commerce. They both apply to local issues as well as national issues. And I will alternate, starting with Congressman George Miller asking the questions and vice versa as we go through. Okay. First question, Solano County has one of the highest unemployment rates in the state of California and the nation. It affects foreclosures, it affects a depressed economy, and one of the worst school dropout rates in the state and nation. There's also a large impact in criminal activity in the local area as a result of this dropout. In your opinion, do you think this is a result of the exporting of manufacturing and service-related jobs to foreign countries? And if so, what legislation will you introduce at the federal level which will result in the recreation of the manufacturing jobs in this area?
Well, clearly the job opportunities are diminished by the outsourcing of jobs to overseas. I find it ridiculous that we have a tax subsidy for those employers to make it more profitable for them to send jobs overseas. When they send them to a foreign country, they get a tax subsidy. So we clearly have to stop that. We've tried now to stop that in these last 2 years of the Congress 8 times, and 8 times the Republicans have refused to go along with that. They want to continue the tax subsidy for people outsourcing the jobs. That's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable to the American people. The reason we made the big bets in the Recovery Act to the to health IT, to the grid system and energy is so that we can create manufacturing centers in this country for renewable energy, for green energy, for health IT, healthcare workers, and others in our economy. If you talk to the economists who talk about where the jobs are going to be in the future, those are 2 big areas. But we had to modernize the system so that it would be worthwhile. Is it working? Well, day before yesterday, Google announced that it's going to invest $5 billion in an energy system for wind energy off the Atlantic coast of the United States. And the reason it's going to be able to do that is because we're fixing the grid so that it can accept wind energy. That's a huge number of jobs it's going to create. It's a huge number of renewable and alternative energy resources for our country. We've got to continue to understand that we've got to make it in America. We've got to manufacture it in America, and the jobs have to be here. And what we have done is we've put up the venture capital. And since we've started doing that around energy, California has attracted 85% of all the venture capital investments in clean and renewable energies. 85% of all of it in the country. Why? Because the governor and the legislature put forth an energy proposal for this state. And now it's attracting investment, thousands of jobs coming to the state. That's what we have to continue to grow. If you don't do that, you know, you have all of the community problems that you outline. On top of that, this community and every community is reeling from the financial scandals and criminal behavior by the big banks of this country. Because people were given loans, people had loans that they couldn't handle, but every time the banks wanted more volume because they were making it on fees and commissions, they kept saying, oh, you can have this loan, you can have this loan. And what do we see? Those fees and commissions led to the bonuses, but they led to massive bankruptcies across this country in businesses and everywhere else. So what do we see? Then the banks came into Congress and they persuaded the Congress, against my judgment, not to let people go to bankruptcy court to defend their house. You can go to bankruptcy court to defend your second home at Tahoe. You can go to bankruptcy court to protect your private jet. You can go to bankruptcy to protect your private yacht. But an American family can't go to a bankruptcy court to protect the home that they're raising their family in. This is outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous that the big banks will continue that.
Two? Yeah. There's a lot there to respond to in 2 minutes. First, I just want to say I love you guys, but when our congressman's talking, please give him the respect. Starting with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Well, let's go there. The question was, how do we make jobs? I just want to set the record clear. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac caused this housing problem, and it started back in the Carter days, went through the Reagan-Bush days, the Clinton days, the Bush days again. There is plenty of blame to go around on everybody, and it is not a Republican fault, it's not a Democrat fault. They share the blame on this problem. And yes, we need to fix it in a bipartisan way, reaching across the aisle, working together to make sure it never happens again. I agree. Now, we talk about the last 2 years of Republicans standing in the way of these measures to get jobs going. You have a 77-seat majority in the House, a 19-seat in the Senate majority. It is not the Republicans' fault. You have bipartisan opposition to these bills that we're talking about because they're overreaching. They're too big a government. And you have people on both sides of the aisle saying, no, that red is too much. That has got to stop, and we're not going to be a party of making that worse. Now, what can the federal government do to help jobs grow? They need to get out of the way. The private sector is where jobs need to grow. The private sector is where our economy grows, not government jobs, not growing government spending. That takes the money out. Government needs to get out of the way. And I talk about this a lot. I only have 30 seconds. It's a big issue. But the biggest thing is the regulations coming out of the federal government. Whether they're just obsolete, they've been around since the 20th century, and they're just costing businesses money and producing nothing, or they cost way more than what they are worth, or we could do it a lot better. Every time a business spends $600, they're going to have to fill out some paperwork on a 1099 because of new regulations coming out there. That doesn't help anybody. We need to get out of the way from the federal government to let private businesses grow this economy, grow jobs, and get us out of this. Thank you.
Thank you. This question is for you, Mr. Tubbs.
Do I get a rebuttal? I think we come back.
No, we're going to have a rebuttal.
Oh, okay.
That would be at the end. There's a certain issue.
That's what I'll get 2 minutes.